Good evening, all. Welcome back to another episode of Role Playing Unlimited Out of Character. I am Tragically HP, the Dungeon Master, and with me, as always, we have Evil Dawn as our party leader. Ironically, Evil Dawn plays the lawful good paladin, Selephiel.
Right. Don't let the evil moniker throw you.
Yeah, I always likened it to the old South Park throwback where the evil versions of themselves had the goatees. So when you're clean shaven, you're just normal Dawn.
Right. Which is never. So.
Well, we have a little something different here on our central. A little something different here on our central screen with the map of the Vanthamper dungeon. Picking up from where we left off in the last session, your tokens are not currently here, but we can see the 6 dead cultists that once resided in these chambers before your characters entered and so easily slayed them within, I want to say, 2 rounds. I'm also using the GM mode here so you can see some of the extras that we normally don't see in the player mode, like the solid wall spaces between the chambers and the secret door markers and what have you. Also, the ghostly visage of our bugbear Hezra, who was unfortunately not with us again this week, but we had her character ready just in case, and
Right.
that's just kind of how we play it. It's always a just in case deal. You can also see Kalidor's favorite spiritual weapon in this location, and the 2 dead cult fanatics who were the leaders. And that's actually where we ended off the last session. Picking up from this most recent session, we're looking into these 2 chambers right here, the left of which was a ritual chamber of some type that had a painting of pit fiends along the ceiling, and just the impression that the characters had going into there was enough to prompt them to back out pretty quickly. So much so that we actually didn't even see this secret door here, although in hindsight, the fact that you, Dawn, the player, spotted, hey, what's up with this wall right here? How come it looks a little different? I should have just been, yeah, your character notices a secret door there. I was sticking to your character has to be within X number of feet.
Ah, okay.
But again, in hindsight, because you saw that, I should have just popped that door right then and there. Alas, we did not. We moved into the next chamber over, which was a wardrobe room, and we actually didn't explore this room at all. I think you walked in, identified it for what it was, and just turned about and said, yeah, it's a wardrobe, and we continued on from there. Heading further north, out of the chamber, and west along the sewer passage, basically connecting all the pieces of the dungeon that we had not yet gone through.
You know, and that's the thing too, is with the wardrobe and everything, if my character was more of a materialistic mindset, I probably would have checked the wardrobe for boxes or hidden things or this or that, but my character is not that kind of a mindset, and it seems that nobody else in the party really is of that mindset to let's go and loot everything that we can. You know, we looted the obvious stuff,
Right.
but we didn't really spend a lot of time
Very true.
searching for the hidden loot. Where, you know, I've been playing these modules for years and years and years, and you know, it's like, hey, you have to check under the bed if you want to get the loot, or
Yeah.
you know, you have to move this statue 4 inches to the left to get the loot. You know.
Some truth to that for sure. That all kind of ties into, I think I was talking about last week, just in the respect and appreciation I've always had for the Forgotten Realms modules going back as far as 2nd edition, is just the amount of detail that they always put into them for groups of any composition, really. Because any other, well, I wouldn't say any other, but a different group of characters coming through this dungeon, they might have killed a few of the cultists and thought, you know, maybe let's take some of these robes and these devil masks for ourselves and see if we can't pull off a little subterfuge here in the dungeon. And then especially if those same characters came across a wardrobe that contained robes and masks that weren't covered in blood and guts of the recently slain, that's just another avenue that any group could have used to complete this dungeon, rather than just going through and slaying everybody because we're lawful good and they're neutral, lawful, chaotic evil. And
Right.
this is the deal with this group. Like, we're out to slay evil. So I definitely appreciate the level of detail they always have in there, even though most of it never sees the light of day with any given group, because just the nature of how groups are and the nature of the time limitations.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that even if it was brought up to the paladin saying, "Hey, let's dress up in these robes, put on these masks, and do this subterfuge," he would flatly refuse, because it would be like honoring a different god. It would be honoring Bane or Baal or, Miracle, and it's just one of those things where my character would be like, "No."
Yeah, paladins typically don't go around disguising themselves. They're pretty open about who and what they are and what they represent.
Right. Which, I mean, is a good thing and a bad thing, you know. And the other thing too is that, you know, I would really have to have considered if they would have came up with a plan of, hey, since you don't want to dress up like this, what if you act as our prisoner, and
Right,
then,
right.
we could lead you around. 50-50 shot that I might go with that. Even
The
though,
old
again, it's lying, it, in a way.
the old Wookiee prisoner gag.
Oh, yeah.
uh, well, just goes to show the different levels that exist in this module and the paths that we might have taken. In any case, we did proceed further east down this passage here, finding this chamber here, which was, I want to say, the crux of the session night before last, because this red X'd fellow right here, get a little zoom in action on him, and there we go. See him up a little closer in detail. That is the High Overseer of Elturel, Thavius Krieg, and
Oh, gosh.
based on the fact that his shadow was obviously casting some kind of fiendish shadow behind him, the party really wasn't listening to anything he had to say pretty much from the get-go. However, our NPC Rhea, who is also a devout follower of Torm, somebody that this Thavius Krieg once paid homage to before turning to the dark side of the devils of the Nine Hells, she still wasn't buying it, even though she clearly saw the shadow that everybody else did.
Well, and also, that's when I decided to pop the turn fiends, which is part of the Watcher's Oath. So I used my one divinity again to do that, watched him scurry towards the back of the wall, which cinched it 100%, including the fact that I used the divine sight, So that combination there, it just, hands down, I had no problems with taking this demon out.
Oh yeah, and we also had Grulok and Kalidor throwing in some attacks against him as well, but he was pretty much defenseless. I don't even know that he ever got to his turn in the initiative to throw any kind of attack. I think he dodged from the get-go because of the turning attempt, and then he bumped into this golden shield that was on the wall, which is a whole other plot in and of itself that we soon came to discover as it telepathically spoke with a deep voice like this. That the nature of that it was a celestial being trapped within this object, and it was seeking a way out. And who are all of you? What is your purpose here? What is it that you seek? and most in the party were smelling a rat pretty much from the get-go on that.
Right. Which is another reason why I didn't pick up the shield myself. It was like, I'm a celestial trapped in a shield. It's like, but you're not really instilling any confidence in that.
Yeah, whereas I think, spoiler alert for those of you paying close attention to Role-Playing Unlimited right now, our Azamar cleric, Kalidor, the player Ben, is going to be unfortunately having to step aside from RPU for the foreseeable future. And I think it was in that frame of mind, knowing that this was his last session as the character, that, well, if there's a cursed artifact here that somebody's going to have to chance, then maybe it should be me.
Well, the other thing on that too is, a comment that you made during the game was, because I said, okay, why don't we take the shield to a temple or a shrine and have them either exercise whatever's inside of it or destroy whatever's inside. You made the comment, it's like, I've never seen a party want to give up magic items so freely. I'm like, you keep giving us cursed crap.
Me? I didn't design this. I'm just giving you what it says is there. At least he found the +1 mace, because that, I don't know if James hadn't rolled that natural 1, if that ever would have came across. I don't know that anybody would have thought, I'm going to break open the statue.
Well, as you know, though, we've been doing a lot of destroying of Baal and, their artifacts and everything, pulling down tapestries and desecrating the desecrated areas.
For sure.
So that probably would have been just one more thing that we would have ended up doing.
Yeah, I guess I see the difference in that one is that this statue was an angelic statue. So it might have given you pause, and the fact that it had glowing eyes, you might have thought, well, this is kind of a weird thing here, and it's not representative of either of the dead three, so maybe we leave it alone. Maybe you would have explored it a little bit more and still cracked the shell around the nut, so to speak, but as it turns out...
I think we would have aimed higher.
As it turns out, an accidental errant swing of the greatsword cracked open that particular nut, and we have our glowing mace +1, which Celestial is now becoming more attuned with as the hours go by.
And that's the cool thing too, though, is that yes, it glows and it's a +1 mace and everything, but it still doesn't require attunement. So we didn't have to take a lot of time to, try to attune to this weapon. Unlike that's shield.
Huge. Yeah.
Being able to use the mace right away, but not knowing what the properties of the shield, or not being able to use the properties of the shield yet.
Yep.
That could have come in handy later as we go on with the story.
Yeah, especially given that when next we play, which will actually be week after this next one, the last week of May, when next we return, it will have been 5 weeks out of game since the last long rest that these characters have taken. So it's been a very long day out of game for these characters. So even the most basic of tasks, like I need to find an hour to attune to this item, or an hour to get a short rest. They've already used up both short rests in the time span, and they tried to take a long rest, which didn't end up going their way, which we'll cover when we get to that point later on.
Yep, and the other thing with that too is I'm hoping that when we finally get a chance to get a long rest, that it is also accompanied by level 5. Especially after all the stuff that we've been through in that one day.
Well, that's kind of the thing too, is if you backtrack the entire day, you guys woke up at level 2, and you're going to bed at level 4 at the minimum. Maybe level 5 comes after the completion of the Van Thamper angle. Maybe it still requires.
Well, we're level 4 now, so
exactly.
I mean, level 5 is the next, logical progression.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a matter of whether this is the milestone to achieve it, or whether you still have more adventures to conduct after that. So
So
continuing on
just
to...
out of
Oh, go ahead.
oh, just out of curiosity though. I mean, again, we're not going to wander back down into the dungeon after our talking out of game and everything like that. Did we miss a ton of stuff, or were we pretty thorough in our investigation of it?
You missed some things, but there was nothing particular that you missed that uh, basically you saw everything, but a lot of things you chose not to interact with or pick up, especially on the villa level. Almost immediately from the get-go, when you walked in there and you were seeing the vases on the shelves, and the next room with the gallery, and all the fancy things that were upstairs in the second level of the villa as well. Some of those we got to, but a lot of those they were just kind of set dressing that nobody really paid attention to beyond the initial description.
Well, we weren't going to play the whole Link break every barrel that we come across or every vase that we come across to see if we could get those extra little coins to pop out.
Right, and that's essentially what it was, is you guys left some coins on the table, but there's no major items or anything like that that are still sit behind, at least at this point.
What, no Holy Avenger sitting by?
Yeah, why not? They're already sending you against helmed horrors and bearded, barbed, and spined devils and all that crap. We passed by here, and we found, or rediscovered rather, the secret door here that we had actually already opened from the other side. You can see here the dead body of Duke Thalamra Van Thamper, who we took out last session, in addition to the most powerful devil in the dungeon, who you can see its ghostly visage right here. Sometimes I delete the token, sometimes I leave them there just in case. More dead cultists, little secret passage. This is what led up to the stables where Celestial found himself a foot away from a giant pile of manure. That was a lot of fun.
Not as much as you would think, but you know, it was. I wouldn't say flavorful because that would just be a horrible thing to add when manure is staring you in the face. But you know, it added, the detail. You know, again, that's what these modules and these adventures are known for, is their detail.
Yeah, for sure. And in that same, a similar vein of manure, considering that our characters spent the last month in the sewer/dungeon here, this particular path here is where all of the sewage was channeled out. So every time they were progressing through this entire sewer here, you can see how all of it just kind of funnels to that one point all the way around.
Yeah, and a lot of that we tracked through pretty quickly, and we didn't spend a lot of time looking for secret doors, because a lot of them, one, we stumbled on them by accident, but the other thing too is that if we were to go step by step, inch by inch, trying to find every secret door in this place, we would be here for the next 3 months, just going that one hallway.
For sure. The plus side is I mean, you can see here, at least in GM mode, most of the secret doors we were able to discover passively with Kalidor and Jonghoon's perception. That is one thing this group will be lacking on, is a good passive perception, because I think it goes from a 4 to a 2 as the second best in the party. So our passive perception just became a 12, which was still good enough for this entire dungeon. You could have found anything hidden with a passive perception of 12. But as the adventure progresses, if that remains our highest score and it only progresses to a 13, 14, 15 by campaign end, then that might not be so good for passive discovery.
Well, have you come up with a plan on what's going to happen after Ben leaves our campaign for a bit?
I have been in contact with one of our Role-Playing Unlimited players, and he is game to rejoin us. It looks like it will be a number of weeks before that happens, so we're going to have an interesting character introduction, I believe, because if my timeline understanding is correct, we're going to be in a different place entirely when we meet this new character. So that might be interesting.
As long as he does not smell of evil.
Oh, look, he's playing a tiefling. Arrgh. But yeah, I think first week of July, second week of July, something like that. So we're going to have a decent number of weeks where it's a party of 5, not the TV show, Baldur's Gate version.
Well, and also, just to clarify for people, Ben is playing the cleric, the guy with all the healing spells. And again, we'll show you what happened when we're out of healing spells coming up. And I have a special song for that, too.
Oh, boy. All right, then. I can't wait to hear it. And as we finished our circle of the sewer passage here, we finally came back to the first door, actually, that we discovered almost a month ago. But we opted to go the northern passage because that's where these 2 cultists were first spotted after we exited from the wine cellar here. So even though we kind of went to the ends of both passages just to see what was there, the group opted to go north, and so it was that this prison right here was actually the final area that we explored, which probably was for the best because would have been a pain in the butt to tug around these 2 prisoners for the entirety of the dungeon. It was for the best that you found them after you had killed everybody else that was already in here. There was a bearded devil, I want to say, that was the prison master.
Yes.
And
for the guard.
Yeah, the bearded devil was pretty reliable. Got off a few good hits, but even by that point, when we had Jim as Jong-hoon, he had to leave the game. We were down to a party of 4 at that point. Even with 4 players, it was a pretty one-sided battle in that respect.
Yeah, well, that's because we did use the tactics again of flanking. That's a very important tactic, especially when you have melee fighters, and us trying to get our hits in. Just having that advantage really helped out. But the fact that he had 2 attacks per round, he had the beard attack and the poison and etc. and so on, and we
everybody made the save against.
We did make the save, but if we didn't make the save, I mean, no one really has any poison defense in our group yet.
Very true, very true. After slaying the bearded devil, we found 2 prisoners, one of which is still here on the map, the female noble who took some offense at Celestial's presumption that any prisoners kept in here would likely be commoners, and she just took great offense at anything anybody had to say, really, except comments in the vein of, "We're here to rescue you, and here's the door." And pretty much as soon as that happened, as soon as we made our way to the next level, she was gone. Hence the reason why her token did not move up to the next level with everybody else, and it's just, might as well, whee! And now she's gone. And that's... Oh, go ahead.
Which I don't expect a reward. Being a paladin, I'm there to rescue people and to fight for the common good. But I'm sure right after she moved out the door, she forgot all about us. And, even if she sees us again, it's going to be like, "Who are you common folk that's standing in front of me? We rescued you." "You did? Really?"
Yeah, exactly. At best, she would remember you, but just pretend that she didn't. And here we have the familiar ground level of the Van Thamper Villa. This here is actually the stables that Celestial came up from underneath. I imagine I haven't even checked this, but I'm guessing the egress is... Well, it's not even on the map. So I guess you just kind of have to imagine where the egress from that hatch would be. I thought it would have been interesting if your characters had discovered the stable before ever even entering the grounds, or if somehow somebody had snuck over the wall and found that secret hatch entry and you guys just immediately went into the dungeon without alerting the guards. But that's another tale for a different group, of which Denshar is probably the party leader. As it was,
I think Denshar probably would have gone through, though, just to murder everybody. Just at that point, he would have just murdered everybody.
Yes, but with sneak advantage on all attacks.
Exactly. How else?
So we have here again the familiar first level of the Van Thamper Villa. These are the stairs that took us down to the basement. And here is the kitchen where we first met everybody's favorite Tressum, Sniper Chops. He's a pretty cool cat, but he's getting very fat because people keep giving him food. And we thought that after X number of treats, this Tressum flying cat would become so obese it would not be able to lift itself off the ground with its flight. That'll be
Yeah, I
interesting.
think we fed it like 4 times, before. And again, it's still one day.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We fed this cat 4 times in one
Yeah.
day.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Slobber Chops, with Kalidor out of the group, because he's the character that the Tressum has bonded most with. But Hezra is the only one that's able to speak to the cat, and I think she'll be back for our next session, so it'll be interesting to see what development occurs in that respect. This area here, the stairs leading up to the second level, which is placed over here, and this is where all of the party tokens are. This is where we ended the night, after ascending the stairs to this landing, where these 3 guards are actually like 10 guards, I think. And this was just a bit of creative liberty on my part, because your characters, the nature of how your characters entered the villa. First, you entered the grounds, made a big hubbub in the courtyard, had a big fight, stomped around through the ground floor, alerted the servants, tied up prisoners to the trees who were shouting for help. The fact that this landing is only about 15 feet above where your characters were on the ground level, the 6 guards that were initially stationed there took it upon themselves to get some reinforcements, because once they knew your characters had gone down to the dungeon and the hours kept ticking by, and they're like, well, they haven't come back up, but neither has the Duke or any of the devils from down there, so we don't know what's going on. And it was certainly at Thirstwell Van Thamper's behest that the reinforcements were called upon, because as you can see here, in GM mode, this dude is rocking 5 HP. So that's why as soon as you walked in the door, he cast his readied spell and immediately dove behind the bed. And he is not trying to have any part of any combat. That's why as soon as Kalidor got up next to him, he was just like, I surrender, please. I'll tell you what you need to know.
Well, before that, we encountered the animated suit of armor. We went into that room and promptly got our butts kicked, and basically I got knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. I got knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. So, yeah, that was pretty much my night at the end of the night.
It sounds like Celestial can rename himself Chumbawamba.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely, after fending off the guards on the upper landing, disposing of their bodies by tossing them down below, we did not immediately go to discover Thirstwell Van Thamper. There was assumption among the group that there's still more enemies up here, that there's still more challenges that we have to overcome, and we're running pretty low on resources. We've already used both of our short rests. We have 1 healing potion left in the group. So after the reinforcement guards came out of the powder room here, that was our natural next direction of exploration, which we discovered some treasure chests, some cosmetics, and the Duke's private suite. And this is where we decided that we were going to attempt to take a long rest, which after a quarter of an hour we rapidly discovered is not going to be possible because the fiendish spirits that dwell in this place, that have attached their infernal nature to the walls of this place, whatever the case may be, it's not allowing you guys to get any kind of long rest. About an hour-long short rest seems to be about the max you would be able to accomplish.
But again, we used up the 2 short rests that we were allowed to use, so therefore
Exactly.
that was even out of the question.
Yep.
And then we hit the well-done trap.
Yep, that's after it was in our exploration from there, because okay, we can't get a rest. Maybe somewhere in these areas we might find some more healing potions, which we actually did. In the cosmetic chests, we found 2 vials that contained healing potions, and promptly divided those up among the group in addition to the one that we still had. And that gave us a little bit more fighting power, so that when we came into the study here and the Helmed Horror was activated, that thing definitely put a walloping on Celestial time and again, because he was the first one to enter the room. You were primary target. So it kept hitting you, and then Ben kept bringing you up, so it kept going back for you because, well, didn't I just drop this guy? All right, I'll drop him again.
Well, what ended up happening, though, is that we didn't find the healing potions until after this combat. So, you know, Ben used up all of his healing spells. We had no healing spells left out of anybody in our group. I used my Channel Divinity, so I couldn't get myself another spell back. So that's when we were scrounging around for the healing potions, and promptly in the very next room, the imp took away all of the hit points that the healing potions have given me.
Right. The horror definitely proved to be the most challenging opponent so far in the campaign, especially with its spell resistances. Nadir, Justin's character, he was completely useless because I'm not going to give away all the secrets of the Helmed Horror just in case we encounter it again. Anybody that got a monster manual, though, can go frickin' read it themselves. But the very spell that Justin was casting upon it was one of a limited number of spells that it is just immune to. So when Justin changed it up and he said, I'm going to use a different element on it, I'm like, it's still the same spell. So I'm glad he missed with that second attack, so it didn't even become a point of contention. But that was a bummer that he blasted the thing with a natural 20, and it was like, yeah, it's immune to that spell. And then he tries the Chill Touch to do necrotic damage. Oh, it's actually immune to necrotic damage. Crap!
Yep. Well, and we're going to probably run into the same type of thing, especially when we go down to Hell. So if we bring in another spellcaster, you know, a lot of these demons and devils and everything like that are all immune, resistant, or advantage against, you know, spells. So which means that we're gonna have to beat them down with whatever we can. Well, again, our casters are trying to power them, but Flame Bolt not going to work against the Fiend. I can almost tell you.
For sure. Absolutely. And most of those fiends have cold resistance too, so your natural inclination. Oh, it's a fire thing. I'm going to throw an ice spell at it. Nope, sorry.
Right. Well, and then again, we also have to look in the fact that they are fiends, so necrotic would probably be listed off the table. So one of the few resources would be to hit him with would be like an acid and or a radiant damage.
Oh, for sure. Radiant's going to be your bread and butter, especially if you're in hell.
Yeah, and that's where the paladin comes in, because eventually I'm going to get radiant damage on every swing.
Nice. It was a hard-fought battle with the Helmed Horror, and I think, it definitely required the expenditure of the rest of the cleric's healing spells just to get you back up, so that we could find healing potions to make it to these next rooms. And the rightmost room here was Mortlock's room, the first of the Van Thamper brothers that we met about a month ago in game, and it was actually him who helped your companions capture Amric, whose chamber this is. And Amric also had a healing potion inside of his chest, which I think was another much needed resource for the companions. And finally, we investigated the room with Thirstwell Van Thamper, who, again, cast his one spell. There was an imp hiding in the fireplace here that did come out and sting Celephiel right in the doorway, or right on the other side of the doorway after he came in. But otherwise, that imp was promptly defeated. Thirstwell was captured and interrogated, and pretty much due to the nature of the course that your characters took going into the dungeon before exploring the villa, most of the information he had to tell you, you already discovered. Oh yeah, we know your mother's down in the dungeon. We know Thavius Krieg is down in the dungeon.
Right.
He did have a few extra bits of knowledge. He, most importantly, had the Infernal Puzzle Box, which is going to be a very important item for the characters going forward.
And he also confirmed a lot of things, especially, you know, when we had someone with us who we just murdered her friend, quote unquote, in front of her, with all this evidence that he was a demon, but he was actually human, you know. So that's where, way back when, where my character had that little crisis of faith going, did I just execute an innocent because my information was incorrect? But it's like, and then eventually I said, no, all my stuff is right. There was something in this, and, you know, we did the right thing.
Oh yeah, there's always an exception to the rule. We did capture Thirstwell. We haven't yet decided what it is that we're going to do with him. I think that's where we're going to pick up at the start of next session, and we will resolve what exactly is going to happen to our cleric in that session as well. And additionally, we have this new NPC, Fallister Fisk, who was the second prisoner rescued from the dungeon down below. And he actually works for a devil expert, a tiefling who lives in Candlekeep by the name of Silvira. And it was she who has been investigating devil activity in Elturel and Baldur's Gate for a number of months now. She actually tasked Fallister to come to Baldur's Gate to find out what happened to Elturel. So Fallister has been investigating much of the same things as your characters and gaining a bit more information. It was he who put your characters onto the scent of, there is this infernal puzzle box. It's somewhere in the mansion. Within it is contained a copy of the deal between the archdevils, or archdevil, and Thavius Krieg that allowed Elturel to be sucked down into the Nine Hells.
You know, and we also got information that upstairs in the attic area, there are a couple more prisoners. We didn't glean the identity of those prisoners yet, but we also got a little idea of the challenge that awaits us. And with me with 4 hit points left, it's the word challenge is kind of a misnomer at that point.
Uh-oh, we've caught our paladin in a lie. He's actually rocking 7 hit points there. So I think Tyr might need to have a few words with...
7? I thought I only had 4 hit points left.
Well, somebody gave you an extra 3, and it wasn't me.
I didn't put extra hit points on there.
Oh,
I thought, great, I'm rocking 4 hit points now.
Yeah, I think you're just at 7. Amric's still at 4. He's been rocking 4 hit points for a month now.
Right. Well, he also hasn't been the target of all these attacks either. And yeah, we did talk about it, and it's like, you know, yes, the paladin goes into the room first, so the paladin is going to be the one who absorbs the attacks. You know, however, I'm better armored, in my opinion, than our fighter. And if part of the nature of being a paladin is protecting people, since we don't have a real scout type character who can be like, you know what, I can get in there stealthily, get some information, you know, and then set this stuff up. Like when we had Denshar in the other game, Denshar could go ahead in the party, be practically invisible, get into a room,
Yeah, the few times the party let him do that.
you know. Of course, we didn't have anybody in the party calling out, "Hey, how's it going up there?" You know.
Yeah, I feel like we would have seen a lot more roster shifts in Enemy or Triple G if our current Baldur's Gate party would have been accompanying Denshar in any capacity.
The palette. I mean, no offense to Sean. Sean played a really good character, and he always plays good characters and everything like that. But there would be no way, because he started as a bard, and then he moved to paladin. But he knew that they had an assassin, a pure evil assassin with them. So to make that kind of a choice, to say, okay, I'm going to be a paladin that's okay with this guy going off and murdering people for money during the adventure.
It definitely also became a case of where do you draw the line? Because, okay, I accept that there's an assassin in the group. Guess what, dude? Now you got to accept that there's a vampire. Oh no, wait, not. There's 2 vampires. Actually, there's 3 vampires in the group. You're gonna have to accept that as well, because otherwise, how much of a hypocrite do you look like in that assassination? Okay, undead, possibly not of your own volition, not okay.
Right. So yeah, there was, when you play a paladin, I mean, and when a GM allows a paladin into a game, there always has to be that the paladin has to be the center of the game. Because again, if you put these evil elements there, the only thing the paladin should be doing is, see ya, I'm leaving, and I'm getting reinforcements so I could come and take you guys down. But it's like also the justification, because in the Watcher code, never deal with fiends, and never, make a company demon. Basically, you are anti-demon, and we have a tiefling in our group. But our tiefling has shown to do celestial magic.
Right.
And as part of the whole backstory is that, we knew each other for quite a while, so I knew that he had this good tendency to him.
They've made it very difficult to be so black and white with your responses in D&D anymore. It's no longer, oh, it's a drow, it's evil, kill it. Well, maybe not so much so. It's an orc, oh, well, maybe it's an ally.
Yep. Considering we have, we have a couple of half-orcs, we've got, a bugbear, we've got, I mean, normally all these evil type creatures, and then you have a pair of Aasimars who are just, the good Aasimars, not the evil version of the Aasimar.
Yeah, it's funny how it ended up that way too, because that's 2 campaigns in a row where we did a triple-double, where we had 3 races, 2 players apiece playing them. I want to say in Triple G we had, what was it, 2 Svirfneblins, 2 Dragonborn, and 2 Tieflings. And then here in Baldur's Gate, we've got 2 Aasimar, 2 half-orcs, and a bugbear, and then the other 2 are the same race, right? Yeah, 2 half-orcs. Yep. 2 half-orcs, 2 Aasimars, and man, I'm drawing a blank on 2 of our characters. Sorry.
I think we only have the 1 bugbear though.
Right, we only have the 1 bugbear. Maybe, okay, so maybe it's a double-double. Maybe I'm just exaggerating.
Yeah, well, 2 Aasimars. We have 2 half orcs, and the bugbear. That's 5 of us.
And then the tiefling. That's
And then
what
the tiefling.
that's what it was. Is I think Justin or Kyla might have had a different initial character concept that was the original triple double, but one of them changed it, so now we just have a double double and 2 singles.
Right.
A double double with cheese.
Sounds like an In-N-Out order.
Right.
Maybe sponsorship? Oh, never mind.
That
Hey, look, a coupon just came for. Okay.
That is going to conclude this segment of this week's RPU OOC recap of the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. We're going to take a brief intermission here, and I'm going to try to channel my inner Fair Dutas scholar, and we're going to delve into the second segment of the Animir Historia. So stay tuned, be back in 5 minutes or so. Welcome back, Roleplaying Unlimited. It is I, Fair Dutas, here to give you the second segment of the Animir Historia. When last we saw, it was the year 67, and the Danamar territory's capital of Purani had been built in only 12 years. For the next 100+ years, there is not anything of historical note from my archives. It is not until the year 200 that the great temple of Naya is founded in the southern states of Ukor, a descendant of Uthgar named Erudir, becoming the religion's first recognized high priest. At the command of his goddess, Erudir focuses the temple on the rule of law and order by fear and threat of vengeance. Nayans become grim, stern figures seeking opportunity to instill their brand of justice wherever possible. By the year 204, in the southern states of Ukor, a mystic named Erukas is crucified by the Church of Naya for claiming to be sent to Alaram by a god whose authority was far greater than that of Naya. When word spreads of the event, High Priest Erudir publicly expresses remorse and misunderstanding, while secretly enjoying the privilege his station provides him. For the rest of the 200s and the 300s, from the Ukorian Empire, few details exist of these centuries, aside from records that detail territory establishments within the Ukorian Empire, further evidence of humanity's continued expansions. Elven and Dwarven interactions with the Empire also seem to be non-existent, though the Halfling race has become friendly with humans, especially the Danamari, with whom they share many lands in the eastern Alaram regions. Halflings become renowned for their connection with the soil, as well as their culinary skills, and a new breed of human halfling known as the Eliar enter the Historia in this era. Curiously, despite their shared heritage of human and halfling, the Eliar by and large find more kinship with elves than any other race, a trend that continues to this day. As exploration north and westward becomes more common in this age, many hundred Eliar make their way to the southern realms of what will eventually become the Kingdom of Bados, finding a primeval connection with the forests there. Gnome histories from within the regions south of the Eliar detail a narrowly averted extinction-level event initiated by our fallacies pertaining to combustible elements and interplanar connections. Further research required. The gnome histories make sparse appearances in the Animir Historia, and most of them detail only the most monumental events from their viewpoints. The changing of leaders, birth lines, expansions, even new inventions seldom appear in the pages of gnomish histories, the race seeming to have no connection to their own past, and no real ambition for the future. This writer proclaims the gnomish race to be the very definition of living in the moment, and I write this with all compliments. The Melima, much like the elves and dwarves, returned to their native lands in the wake of the human expansion age, focusing the efforts of their entire race on the mystery of the magical barriers, and discovering little. I am parched. One moment, please. Alright, back to it. In the year 421, the country of Bados is founded when the famous explorer Runico sets sail west from Ukor and discovers the fertile and mostly unoccupied peninsula, though the fact that gnomes, elves, and Eliar are already living there debunks Runico's claims of being the first. He is, however, the first human to establish a settlement in the region, and many thousands more will follow in the coming years. Initially, Bados is a country of low morals and lazy values, as the settlers who make their way here are criminals seeking escape from Ukorian law. By year 431, the Badosi Civil War begins between coalitions of criminals and the newly established hierarchy of Badosi nobility. Though small in number, the criminal coalition uses clever tactics to outclass their noble rivals, and the conflict soon expands to include much of Alaram as the Ukorian Empire takes a vested interest in seeing a Badosi kingdom made reality at the end of the Civil War. Now impossibly outnumbered, the coalition enlists the mercenary aid of barbarians from the Northlands, a frozen wilderness known as Taul. The Taulite barbarians earned the coalition a few key victories in the Badosi Civil War, but the conflict is quickly quashed once the Ukorian Empire has enough soldiers in Bados. The coalition crumbles, and its criminals are tried and executed. The Taulite barbarians fight on and off again for years, not seeming to understand that the war has ended. But the Kingdom of Bados is at last formed in the autumn of this year, with King Horshuk, her first ruler. By year 499, the Badosi capital of Isis is completed after 60 years of construction. So beautiful and unique is the city at the time of its completion that it becomes the most desired location to live by most citizens of the Ukorian Empire. The completion of the even more extraordinary and wondrous sea view to the south in year 500 leads to a mass migration west to Bados. Thousands of wealthy individuals, and thousands more looking for new lives, all make new homes in Bados. The unique blend of all these different cultures makes Bados the most diverse country in Alaram. Following the Badosi Civil War and decades of new sophisticated ideals, Bados changes her identity from one of filthy criminals to the apex of art and culture. By year 525, the Danamar territories amicably secede from the Ukorian Empire. Over decades, the mines of Danamar had yielded countless riches to the centrality of Ukor, and rather than fight a bloody war over those mines, the Ukorian Emperor would concede the secession, blessing Danamar's desires to expand her own culture and her own government. By year 542, after years of bloody wars, the nation of Taul becomes a recognized sovereignty of Alarim after Raggoron the Bloodthirsty unites the 79 barbarian clans of the Taulite region. Taul remains committed to her warlike nature for centuries, eventually and continually testing the mettle of neighboring Bados to the south, as well as the dwarves and wildmen to the east. Diplomacy and trade is all but unheard of with the nation, but Taul earns a reputation and a living as having the fiercest and deadliest warriors in the realms. Leaders change frequently in Taul, but after Raggoron's Rage, the campaign of unifying blood wars, the clans remain united, regardless of their king, strengthening the country as a whole. By year 601, the Elriolf Bardic College of Seaview is completed. Bados becomes the center of art and culture. Even elves forego their centuries-long isolationism to explore the wonders of Badosi culture, and new developments in art, dance, fashion, music, food, and theatrics occur in rapid sequence as more and more personalities add their perspectives to the milieu that is Bados. By year 750, Varismail, a town devoted to the god Karios, is constructed in eastern Ukor. Every year henceforth, peoples who place their faith in the god of luck journey here to pay homage for their good fortune. The place earns a reputation as a lackadaisical town of layabouts, which isn't entirely untrue. But many adventurers take their first steps here as well. The town's connection to the divine realms cannot be denied, but to date none have been permitted to study the town, the layabouts very touchy and superstitious about their home. By year 842, the human priest Veranor is first recorded in the summer of this year, preaching in the small town of Asar, in the southern states of Ukor. Seemingly overnight, rumors spread that Veranor is the fulfillment of ancient Naian prophecy that will herald the arrival of a new deity and great conflict. Veranor's extraordinary and never-before-seen powers of magical healing do little to dissuade these rumors from reaching the devout of Naya, goddess of law and vengeance. The messages Veranor brings to the southern lands are not well received by the Naian majority, though some converts are swayed from the Naian-centric rule that has overshadowed the southern states for centuries. Veranor is sentenced to death by Naya's high priest, but with seeming divine power on his side, Veranor flees unhindered from the proverbial belly of the beast of South Ukor into Central Ukor, where he finds untold thousands of people receptive to his words of sacrifice, grace, and mercy. Another brief parch break here. By year 844, after 2 years of fleeing Naian renegades from southern Ukor, Veranor is finally captured at a small campsite in central Ukor and taken back south and crucified for his crimes against the Naians. Coincidentally, this campsite will be the future location of Carthal's Inn. The crucifixion of Veranor sends sparks that ignite the First Continental War between the Naians of southern Ukor and the now faithful of Veranor in the north. South Ukor becomes Interius and allies itself with the barbaric and mostly forgotten Taulites to the far northwest. In the extraplanar realms, the martyr Veranor is elevated to godhood for his sacrifice in dedicating his life to the tenets that he now represents in the divine pantheon. For the next several centuries, Only those clerics who pay homage to Veranor will have access to the most potent divine restorations, including the ability to restore life. This elevation to godhood only intensifies Naya's hatred for Veranor and the entity that commands even the gods themselves. By year 845, for months, Eucor is torn asunder between the incessant brutality of the Taulite and Interi forces. With only Eucor City standing before all is lost, a man named Varn, rumored to be the avatar of Veranor, arrives from the north, leading an army of dwarves and psionic warriors from that region. In a spectacular turnaround of fortune, this siege of Eucor is broken by the alliance of dwarves and the men who call themselves Izarians. The faithful of Naya, as well as the bloodthirsty Taulites, scatter after their rout, but so too would they eventually reform, sporadically continuing the holy war with Eucor for another 200 years. By 850, a traveler named Illern discovers a massive freshwater lake in Interius where, according to his map, he should have been traveling through the desert. Upon this discovery, the Nayans instantly detest this body of water, naming it Lake Erukas after the blasphemer of centuries past. Rumored to be the location where Veranor's body was left for the birds after his crucifixion, the Nayans seemingly prove the truth of these rumors by attempting to use epic magic to poison the lake. Despite their best attempts, the waters of Erukas remain the freshest source of water and fish on the continent. By year 940, Carthal's Inn is founded in central Eucor. Over time, this location will become the most renowned inn in all of Alaran, famous for her 9 different brews of ale, as well as her potato pies, though most make the journey here to visit the site where Veranor is said to have been captured. By year 976, the dwarves of Thrathagan leave the Eucor Interius War and return home to discover that their long absence has cost them much territory to vicious monsters. With no time to recover after the First Continental War, the dwarves attempt to reunite with their stranded clansfolk throughout the Rathagan and retake their lands. By year 1024, in the Rathagan, the dwarves conclude their bloody wars against the monster hordes of the wild. Horribly beaten after the long battles, the dwarves seal themselves inside their mountain kingdom. For much of the next 200 years, dwarves are seldom seen outside the Rathagan, and no one else is allowed in. By year 1038, Danamar impresses the entirety of Alaran with newfound advances in technology, notably for increases in mining techniques, but most notably for the invention of steam power, which completely revolutionizes industry. Railways are constructed and abandoned just as quickly as technology increases faster than anyone can keep a pace with. Steam power is quickly old news within a decade, replaced by the new wonders of technomancy, a merging of Eldritch and steam tech. With technomancy, anything is seemingly possible, and Danamar sets about proving this over the next century. By year 1055, King Garrus, the most famous of Danamari kings, dies of old age. His passing is greatly mourned by not only his country, but also by many in Alaran. His rule is of course marked by notable technological advances, but also for alliances with the Everhome Elves, as well as the general prosperity everyone in Danamar enjoyed during his reign as king. By year 1065, High Priest Yoren of Interius renounces his allegiance to Naya. This move marks the first time in over 800 years that the High Priest of the Theocracy is not loyal to the goddess of vengeance and law. As Yoren relocates his home to the Eastern Lands, this causes a schism between Western and Eastern Interius, as both the High Wizard and the High Priest make plans for new ways of life in Interius. Western Interius remains true to Naya, while Eastern Interius begins to show fealty to Lorak, the god of nobility and artisans, and, to much surprise, Varanor, god of healing. By year 1066, the First Continental War finally concludes, with no side being declared a winner. Interius and Eucor draw their borders in accordance with the magical barriers, and the soldiers of the different armies go home to their respective lands. The independent states of Izar are also founded in this year, a coalition of 5 states located in the far northern lands of Alaran. Because of their unhindered assistance in the lengthy war, Eucor becomes a strong and fast friend of the new country, aiding them tremendously over the next 100 years as the country continues to expand from their nomadic roots. The Izarians are naturally gifted with psionic magics, and their unarmed fighting traditions are respected with many monk monasteries throughout the north. By year 1067, Interius does not wait long to wage war again, as this time the nation of Taul, their allies for over 200 years preceding this event, is their target. Waging perhaps the sloppiest war in history, the remaining Nyan Interi forces spread themselves thin in an attempt to conquer a faraway land. More time is spent in transit to the destinations of war than is actually spent fighting, and Taul, fighting in her homeland, will eventually send the Interi back home again. Back in Eastern Interius, High Priest Yoren and High Wizard Tutaris attempt to persuade the Nyans to call off their wars of vengeance, but over the next 2 decades, several thousand Nyan loyalists will throw their lives away in this pointless conflict. By the year 1079, once again, Danamar mourns the passing of a great leader in King Pelador. Like Garrus before him, Pelador's reign brought remarkable advances of technology and continued prosperity for the entire kingdom. Mestalon, master of the Everhome Elves, even attends his funeral. Such was the respect this great king garnered. In his last words, Pelador is quoted as having said to promise a great wealth of technology the likes of which have never been seen. 2 months later, Danamari inventors would discover the secrets of gunpowder, changing the face of combat forever. By year 1085, the School of Sorcery is built in Interius by Grand Master Wizard Tutaris. At age 95, the human wizard and co-ruler of Interius makes a name for himself by demonstrating a secret path to overcoming the magical barriers, and claiming to be able to teach his students the same. In year 1098, Interius finally admits defeat and ends the vengeance war against Taul. By year 1120, after decades of stagnation and a crippled economy following the First Continental War, Eastern Interius attempts to solve its problems the only way it knows how. As Western Interius recovers from the bloody conflicts against the Taulites, Eastern Interius declares war on quiet Danamar. The Interi invade the southern borders of their enemy, gaining access to rich gold and obsidian mines that are plentiful in the land. With new leaders and new ideas, Interius is more tactically minded in this conflict, choosing stealth and precision over brutality and overwhelming magic assaults. By 1125, gaining no ground on attempting to re-ally themselves with Eastern Interius, Western Interius stops sending representatives to government house meetings. While not officially declared a separation, in the eyes of many this shows a definite division between the splintering country. On some maps, the western reaches of Interius are now called La Rule. In year 1126, in the untamed north of Eucor, on an exploration campaign with a small band of friends, Sir Tego of Eucor is caught between 2 forces of quarreling goblins. Vastly outnumbered, Tego's band is nearly annihilated before the knight leads them in a heroic last stand against the goblin hordes. His fantastic success earns him the barony of the new Eucorian expanse, which over the years will eventually include towns Mylar and Kessian, as well as Fort Nolan. In the year 1132, the first airship is created in Danamar, a vessel demonstrating the pinnacle of technomancy. Over the decade, the airship model will change multiple times, resulting in numerous differing models. By 1134, after years of skirmish battles with Interi forces, Carian Strongbow of Danamar permanently slays General Herion of the Interius armies. With no strong leadership remaining, the Nayans concede defeat and make their third retreat in the country's short history. This year also marks the death of High Priest Yoren. Yoren's successor, a cleric named Istakar, is devout of Naya. Overnight, Lurul and Interius are allies again, merging back to one country, and Veranor worship is again banished. High Wizard Tutaris resigns from his position as ruler to teach full-time at the School of Sorcery. Well, friends, that's all we got for tonight. Was always a pleasure to do Role-Playing Unlimited out of character. Like to thank Evil Dawn for being here tonight, and hope you have a good night when you come back and see that we are off the stream there, brother. To our friends, our subscribers, our viewers, our family, everyone, much love, respect. Hope you all have a great week. Role-Playing Unlimited will be offline for this coming week for Tuesday Baldur's Gate and for next Thursday's RPU 00C. So we will catch you in the last week of the month. And have a good night all. Take care.